Namaste. Welcome to another edition of Navimash podcast today. There is
Namaste.
a
Welcome to another edition of Navimash podcast today. There is Welcome to another edition of Navimash podcast today. There is Welcome to another edition of Navimash podcast today.
there is a audio coming from something. Is it,
So
sir?
I'm not sure if it is coming from me, but I was
There is
muted. But
audio coming from something.
Okay, let me just fix it. Let
I'm
me
not
just
sure
fix
if
it.
it is coming from me, but I was
There is
muted.
audio coming from something. Okay, let me just fix it. Let me just fix it.
From me, but I was
There is
muted.
audio coming from something. Okay, let me just fix it.
You're on mute.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Welcome to Navimash podcast. Today we have with us Mr. Ajay Chaturvedi, who wrote these two books. You can see here: Time, Kāla Darśana, Building Blocks of Time, and Time, Kāla Gati.
So time
Yeah.
and time.
Yeah,
Kāla
sir, I think you need to turn off your YouTube because we are getting the feedback. That's what from your end it's coming. Turn off your YouTube. Let me. Yes, sir. I think you need to turn off. Just turn off your YouTube tab or the audio button. You need to mute it.
I've
You're able
done like I was a mute so far.
Yeah, now we can hear. Actually, yeah, what happened is you would have actually turned on the YouTube streaming, so we are getting the feedback. No issues, no issues. Okay, so we have with us Dr. Vijit Prasanta that all of my audience knows, and we have Mr. Ajay Chaturvedi who wrote these two books, and he wrote one more book. So without wasting any time, we'll directly go to Mr. Ajay Chaturvedi. Sir, so it's a very interesting journey and interesting things we're talking about you while discussing our podcast. So could you give us our audience a glimpse into uh, how you came about writing these two books? Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, for having me in this podcast. And I was quite, surprised when I saw the link that you had shared last time when you guys were having a discussion. Um, but the answer is fairly long, but I'd keep it very crisp. See, time is a concept that has intrigued me for a very long time. Like I don't think there's ever been a time that I've not really wondered about time. About time travel. Back to the Future is a movie that we sort of grew up with, and but beyond that, in the adult ages, what was always intriguing to me was how uh, insignificant we sort of started treating it to be. In business school, for example, the key phrase was time is important, but timing is everything. And I was quite curious to learn about how do you determine timing. And the whole thing was always brushed aside and said, well, it's a gut feel, it's an experience. And that always made me wonder, in childhood, in our typical Sanatani home, we always had a muhurta that was determined before any auspicious thing that was done. I mean, what is muhurta if it's not the science and art of timing, right? And that is something that I wanted to sort of bring in, bridge the gap, because see, all of us have always had this thing. Why are things different? We're in the same world, we're breathing the same air, we're on the same earth, we're experiencing the same thing. Why are we, sort of looking at these two fundamentally different things while analyzing the same time that we're all experiencing the same way, right? And so that one thing led to the other, led to the other. So it's about almost 20 years of research that got me down to these books. But we'll of course talk much more about the deep concepts, the kind of things that have been explained. And there's a third one, the Time series, that I've purposely withheld because that's going to be a very evocative book. Not provocative, very evocative, because even in these two books, people are saying, we had no idea. 80% of these books, people had no idea. Actually, 90%. And I'm honestly surprised, if I've wondered about these concepts, why haven't people wondered about these concepts, right? And so we'll talk about some fundamental truths that have been ignored for a long period of time. And it is extremely important for us today, especially the youth, to start understanding these concepts if they want to understand what is going on in the world today. Politically, environmentally, in terms of climate, sustainability, economics, everything is impacted with time. And I think it is critical for everyone to understand what time is. And the only place that time is defined is the Vedas. That's it. Nowhere else, right? And that's the whole research. That's why these two books.
Yes. So, little bit about your journey as a author. So, in our tradition, we always ask who is what and who became the author. So, your journey, little bit for the audience.
Right. So I had this traditional classic, in a traditional Indian Hindu kid grows up, wants to be an engineer, doctor, takes science, the conventional journey. So I, became an engineer, went to BITS Pilani, did computer science. Then I, went abroad, worked with, several leading multinationals. Then, was witness to the dot-com bust, went back to business school, came out of there, went into strategy consulting, investment banking, the regular route. And then the questions always persisted, because no matter how much you travel, no matter how far you go, the roots always keep tugging back at you. And, at the heart of hearts, we all know that we always are intrigued by the beauty and the complexity yet simplicity of Sanatana Dharma. All of us are basically connected because of that, right? I've always found it, quite trivial and shallow when people start to explain Diwali as, festival celebrated for, victory of good over evil. I mean, it's far, far more than that. Every festival has been reduced to, victory of good over evil. And then, when you start to study Ramayana, you realize that Ravan was actually a, very learned king, and his journey itself was sort of twisted in a way. So all those things were the ones that intrigued me and got me down from this path that a conventional path that I was supposed to have taken, to a journey of research and deep dive into our roots. And of course, with the knowledge of the Western science and the Western models. And that's what got me here. So the first book that I wrote was Lost Wisdom of the Swastika. That was more of a philosophical book and written like a fictional story, because there are concepts that Indian media just was not able to ready to handle, given the symbol, given everything. So I had to write it as a story. And then now these 3 books, 2 of which are out, third one will be coming out. I have 3 more books coming out, which I'll talk about, later during the podcast.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So now we will now first. Do you want to talk about the first book or the second book? Which one you would prefer to just to start the conversation?
I think let's do a generic conversation, because it will span both the books, and then we'll deep dive into different concepts, right? I'll quickly mention, when I finished these books, and these books were done almost 2 years ago, it took the editors that much of time, because, every editor would begin reading the book, and they'd come back to me with feedback, Ajay, why are you calling these time? They should be called, deep dive into the Vedas. And I said, guys, you don't understand. Please, bear with me. I've done this whole back and forth, going here and there and up and down, and historical diving into things. And this is not, trust me, this is not Vedas. This is just about time. But nobody has questioned the foundations of time, right? So I think it's important to look at both these books. So the first book is Building Blocks of Time. Why would I write a book called Building Blocks of Time? Because until you understand the foundations of time itself, the way we are today, I can't begin an inquiry, 50 years from today or 50 years ago from today. It has to be where I am today. Where I am today, I'm still experiencing and following the weekdays, the 24 hours, the 60 minutes, the 60 seconds, the years. I'm still celebrating Diwali. I keep asking these questions. These are the questions that I ask in my classes at IIT or IIM, wherever I am. Like, guys, tell me, when was Diwali last year? Which day is it this year? Invariably, they can't answer. They have to look up the calendar. But I ask them, when is it Christmas this year? 25th December. When is it last year? 25th December. What is different? And they can't answer, right? It's easy to say that, well, it's lunar, solar calendar. No, no, no. Give me the foundational, the fundamental building blocks of how it's determined. While we have all the lunar festivals, we still have a solar festival called Makara Sankranti, right? And then people have different sort of understanding about well, 2000 years ago it was this. And again, I have to correct most of the people, because the history that has been written today and that was taught to us today, or in the schools, has been fundamentally wrong. Because unless you understand the texture of time, you cannot talk about what people experienced at that time, right? And as disturbing or as foundationally different as it may sound, it is extremely important for us to learn that today, because unless you know where you have come from, you will not be able to determine where you will be going, right? People think, they take it for granted. Well, calendar is there. You tell them, well, I'll take away the calendar. How will you determine the things, right? And this is a puzzle that I give to the people that, let's say you're stuck. You've sort of taken a boat and it's capsized, and you somehow survived, and you end up on an island, and your short-term memory is gone, but you have all the equipment, everything to survive for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks, whatever amount that you need, and you're on equator. You can determine, let's say, the paksha, right? Shukla paksha, Krishna paksha. You can determine maybe the month, the season, the day. Can you determine which weekday is it, right? And those are the kind of things that have always kind of intrigued me. And that's why the first book, Building Blocks of Time, the second book is important, because that literally connects not on what we have gone through, but what history has been written about it, right? When people start defining history, like a lot of scholars today are discussing Ramayana happened 10,000 years ago. And then they'll say, well, when they say Sri Ram ruled for 11,000 years, that's all mythical. I don't think you've read Ramayana yet. The same way that I don't have any right to comment on Shakespeare in English until I've read it. So unless once I've read it, then I can comment on it. But I can't say, well, I've done PhD in English literature, now I can comment on the Vedas that was written in Sanskrit like millions of years ago. I don't have so that's why these two books have been written, because I had to have justifications. This is where the sources are, and factual scriptural sources, like where do 360 degrees come from? Where does 24 hours come from? Not, they did this, it's a conjecturing, Newton saw apple falling, theory of gravitation. If Rishi Pipalad already gave the theory of gravitation, what different did Newton or Galileo do? That's where the research is, right? So broadly, these two books, happy to discuss, all these concepts, but I'll take lead from your questions.
Okay, so let me take the book and actually start with the actually first chapter. So I had read through half of it. I'm going to finish this, but let's take the first chapter itself. So in your first chapter,
right?
Let me see. Yeah. So when you talk about the illusion of time, exploring the boundaries of existence.
Right.
So let's start with the first chapter itself.
Sure. So, typically, and this is a question that I think most of us have had, right? We've grown up watching Star Trek, okay, Star Wars. People are going to outer galaxies. People are like doing all kinds of things. Then you look at the Indian traditions. So there is this thing called Dashrath Shani Stotra, okay, where Raja Dashrath is warned by his Purohits that Shani, Saturn, is entering Rohini Nakshatra. Okay, Rohini Nakshatra is the Janma Nakshatra of Sri Krishna. And it's supposed to be extremely unauspicious. They say if Saturn enters Rohini Nakshatra, there'll be complete, rife, sukha pad jayega. There'll be, earthquakes, and it's, a period of complete destruction and annihilation. So can you prevent it? And so Raja Dashrath gets on his chariot, which is plated with gold, and he's got his best of horses. And then, this is how it's described. He, races past the moon 300,000 yojanas above until he reaches Rohini Nakshatra, and he's faced with Shani, face to face. Now, of course, this story sounds mythical, right? So I'll put this aside. But when you start to wonder, anybody who wants to explore, let's say God is the one. Let's say there is this white bearded man, who's made the entire, solar system, universe. What is the way that any curious human or individual would want to explore the, God? Where is God? They would have to get to the edge of the universe to be able to study it, right? I mean, imagine you've just woken up in a dark place. The first thing you wake up is try to find out where you are. So you start to feel things. You let's say go to a wall, you try to feel if there's a switch, is there a light switch, is there a window, is there a door? So you can get out of this place and start to explore what's inside, right? That's typically how people would explore it. And that's exactly what's going on. Except, and I've written a book, of course, with all the knowledge. Then I came back to start writing as how would a normal human perceive it. A normal youth today would want to explore things the same way. Is it really an illusion? Because if you say that day is happening because of sunrise and sunset, right? Then if I could take you to a height really high up, keeping everything else constant, and you keep seeing sun all the time, would you still experience day and night? Would you still keep aging or not? Right? Those questions will obviously bother you. And so ask somebody this, they'll say, of course, we will not feel days and nights. We'll constantly keep seeing the sun. We'll always have days. And so I'll live forever. Will you really? Right? That's where the question is. Is it really an illusion, or are you experiencing time because of sunrise and sunset, or are you experiencing time because of breathing? Your breath is still going on. If your breath keeps going on, then you start to analyze that any average human will breathe 21,600 breaths from sunrise to sunrise. If you half your breathing using pranayam, then your age will double, right? And that's the source. Now, let me just quickly pause and ask you a question. Just Google right now the oldest person alive on earth today.
Yeah, so it mentions that as of April 26, 2025, the oldest living person is Ina Canabro Lucas of Brazil,
Right.
born in
Right.
June 8, 1908.
Right. So still about 120 years old, right?
106 to be precise. 106, almost 107, 117. 17.
Right. 117 years old.
Yeah.
Now, this is, this is not something that I've researched today. This is something that I was researching like 5, 6, 7 years ago as well. And I keep checking back on it. I keep updating the systems. In 2022, President Ramnath Kovind awarded Padma Shri to a yoga master called Swami Shivananda. And Swami Shivananda's pictures, the pictures there in my book, in book 1, along with his passport, and it's printed in international media. Okay, he was 125 years old then. He's 129 years old today, still alive, fitter than all of us put together. He can do handstands. Clearly, he's not taken protein shakes or supplements to enhance his life. He's done pranayama and his yoga. The pharmaceutical industry does not benefit from him. The FMCG, the industry does not benefit from him. So they find no point in even recording him as the oldest person alive. That's the narrative that I'm talking about. What you are reading on the internet is not necessarily, and in fact, 90% of the time is not even the truth. You're just being made aware of something, and then if you look up, this lady, why she's old, like what she's done, they'll talk about all kinds of diet plans, whatever that she's done, right? Swami Shivananda is not, a meat eater. He's not drinking alcohol. He's not taking protein shakes, right? So fundamentally, then you start to question, is this really the right track? Okay. That's just one part of the thing, right? And it's happening right in front of us. Forget what's happened 2000 years ago. Okay. That's one important thing. Second question is, what did the asuras always ask for in all of her scriptures? Any asura?
I don't remember, but Bijita, you're on mute.
Immortality.
Exactly. Everyone talked about Amritva. Amritva is basically what? You got to understand, Amar is essentially being Kalatit, like away from, time, the concept of time. Exactly the concept that I just described, 5 minutes ago. If I could take you right where you are, everything remains the same. You're breathing, you're eating, whatever, but I've taken you, let's say, 5,000 kilometers above the earth. If you keep seeing sun all the time, will your life change? Everything else remaining the same. Will you live forever? Will your age be affected? It will be, because your breathing is still happening, right? Breath is related to gravity. Now, people don't understand this, but gravity, distance, time, speed, they're all interrelated. They're not independent of each other. You can't say, well, this person lived for this long, he traveled this much. No, it's all interrelated. Okay. Now, when you start to go deeper into it, the fact that you realize is this. What intrigued me after a long, research and just going back and forth, like this is not a linear research where you go one from to another point. You have to keep going back and forth. If science came up in the 15th century and Galileo, Newton talked about gravity, we've all heard phrases like, people say, well, it's there in the Vedas. My first question was always, okay, tell me, where is it in the Vedas? Which sloka is talking about this? Which book is talking about this? You don't even know where to get the Vedas. Yeah? What are you talking about? Which part, right? That's when I started to research, like, where do 360 degrees come from? If you look at Google, it'll say Babylonians, Mesopotamians, they had these 6 equilateral triangles. I said, guys, I'm not looking for a story. I'm looking for how did you arrive at it? Rig Veda talks about it. Okay. So Rishi Darghatma actually talks about the 360 degrees. The Rishi is like counting. They're like, okay, 720 ahoratras. Aho is day, ratras is night. So he literally is counting. Okay. That's the circle that he's looking at, the zodiac. Then the 7 horses of the sun. Again, a very profound, deep concept. These are not like random pictures. Okay. But I'll come back to that later. So if you start understanding that, then Newton and Galileo essentially arrived at a rate, okay, of gravitation. They're like, okay, the two bodies that are attracting each other are inversely proportional to their weights. In summary, I'm not going to go deep into the theories because you can read up, most of the students have read it. Rishi Pipala talk about the apana vayu and the prana vayu that is keeping you attracted to the earth. Okay. So if the gravitational pull is high, then my breathing will be slow. Right? If the gravitational pull is high, then I'm breathing slow. So essentially, instead of 21,600 breaths, my breathing is reduced. Automatically, my life will be increased. That's why people would live longer in Jupiter. Right? That's why you had these comics where, Sabu and Chacha Chaudhary is supposed to live long. Why? I mean, these are the foundational concepts. Okay. So, again, people will say, well, this is all comic stuff. Why is he talking about mythology? I'm not. I'm coming to something very specific. If you read Ramayana, and this is chapter 12 of book 1, where it clearly explains in any Purana, Mahabharata, Ramayana, Garud Purana, any Purana, you pick it up, any Vedic text always talks about time first. They don't begin like thin air. They don't start with, God created earth in 7 days. No, 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 no. They go very specific. They're like, okay, this is Paramanu, Anu, the time it took. Initially, it talks about Vishnu Purana, for example. Next podcast, I'll bring Vishnu Purana with me. I'll talk about it. It talks that initially there was only time, only Kala. Kala had three gunas, Satoguna, Tamoguna, and Rajaguna. It says the time it took for the atom, the Paramanu to form, is the same as the space it encapsulated. This concept, the shloka took me about a week to just let it sink in. What it's saying is that time is the only non-negotiable. Okay? When you read Ramayana, and I've taken one specific thing, I could pick up like hundreds of Puranas, 108, but I am not going to do that, right? I'll talk about just Ramayana. Ramayana, it talks specifically about Raja Dashrath did the Anusthana from one Vasant Ritu to second Vasant Ritu. Then he talks about the Brahma Muhurta. Then he talks about, so they're very specific about time measurements. They're talking about Muhurtas, Ghatikas, right? All that. When you go deeper into that, you realize that they were meticulous keepers of time. So what prevented Rishi Pipalad from talking about a rate of time that Newton and Galileo talked about, right? I mean, if I have all the wealth, you'd think like as a kid, if I love, 5-star chocolates or Snickers bars, and I'd think, Elon Musk is so rich, why isn't he just, completely drowning himself in, Snickers bars? That's what my first thought would be, but that's not a priority for him, right? Similarly, when you come to the Vedic rishis, there's a reason why they didn't do the determining of the rate, okay? But that's what Newton and Galileo talked about. So now the fundamental question is, if you, again, very basic one, 9.8 meters per second square, where does the second come from? Right? That's the question we need to ask. Guys, you've started science. Science began in 15th century. You've given a rate. Where does this rate come from? The natural answer is, 60 seconds is 1 minute, 60 minutes is 1 hour, 24 hours make a day. Okay, fantastic. Where do the 24 hours come from? Again, Google it, Greco-Roman concept. Okay, tell me which Greco-Roman concept, which Greco-Roman scripture. There is no Greco-Roman scripture. The Book of Dead does not talk about it. Epic of Gilgamesh does not talk about it. Bible doesn't have it. Quran does not have it. No book has it. You will trace back eventually to the Vedas and to Surya Siddhanta. Now you go back again. Surya Siddhanta was translated by Reverend Ebenezer in 1852, I think, and he takes about 150 pages just trying to justify that this couldn't have been written in India. It had to have been a Greek. My first question is, okay, fine. The best part is of being open-minded is, bring it on. I'm completely open. Tell me, give me a reason, answer my questions. If the Greeks wrote it, why did they call it Surya Siddhanta? It makes no sense. I know exactly now that everything, the weekdays, for example, they are defined by the devas, right? And I'll talk about these concepts, in later podcasts. But for now, to answer your basic question, this is where it began. This is where the actual journey has to be today. Now, why is it important? Is because today NASA itself is claiming that the sun is receding. The moon is receding. That means they're going further away. How much they're going further away by, it doesn't matter. The moment you accept that sun is receding, now hold this thought here. In India, in the Vedic thought, horas were only divisions of time. They were not the way we measured them. Okay? So I can say there are 50 seats in this room in every row. But I'm not specifying that every seat is of the same width. In the front row, the seats might be narrow. In the back row, seats might be wider, right? So naturally, then the room will be like this. If these are the back rows, these are front rows, right? But I'll say 50 seats in every row. Are you able to understand what I'm trying to get to? We always measured time with ghatikas and muhurtas. And of course, beyond the ghatikas, it goes. The whole concept of ghatika is explained in book 1. How ghatika came to be, how did they start measuring it? There's this movie called, Mohenjo-daro. where they actually have a ghatika that he sinks also, right? It's an extremely important concept. We can go deeper into this concept as well later. But for now, let's just stick with, why at that particular point you realize if science started measuring, taking the concept of hora, crystallizing it to an hour, and then using that hour today, if you were to say that, if you were to plant a pole on the northern hemisphere on the ground, the sun rises in the east. Okay. The more it rises, so the shadow is here. Once it rises, the shadow starts moving here this way. So the shadow is moving clockwise. So if and that's the way they complete the 24 hours, right? So it's an assumption, but where the assumption comes from, nobody knows. That assumption comes from the Vedas, from Surya Siddhanta, from Vedanga Jyotish, from Brihat Parashar Hora Shastra. Okay. So if you understand that, then you'll understand that if it were in southern hemisphere, the clock would have been anti-clockwise. Okay. Now, if NASA is saying that the sun is receding, then the hour has become longer, right? Because if the body has gone further away, the sun is rising, it will obviously take longer for the thing to go around. So that means the day is elongating. If the day is elongating, then the second length is also changing. So 9.8 meters per second square now, the second has changed. So light speed can't be constant, gravitation can't be constant. And, again, when I landed, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. But then I started seeing, there's multiple professors, multiple researchers that are now researching in the West. They're saying, look, time is elongating. There are no constants. We don't have constants. Okay. And this is what is resulting in the energy crisis. West fundamentally, when in 15th century discovered, they're like, we are the bosses. We know exactly what time is. We mastered time. That's when the whole delusion started. Time travel, H.G. Wells wrote this book on time, how time can be like, basically they're treating time as something separate, not realizing that time is what we exist in. Time is the only thing. Space comes out of time. They're treating space as separate, time as separate. But the thing is, the assumption is based on Vedas. Vedas is not talking about that, right? I can't buy a Mercedes from Mercedes, like the best of S-Class, cover it up with a blanket, and then start treating like an elephant. I'll say, well, it moves. Every time I hit it, it moves. Well, by some fluke, it does. And then, once the petrol runs out, then I start claiming, well, I always told you the elephants don't work. Well, you're not even aware what the machinery is. That machinery underneath is Vedic, right? So today, when we're talking about, the time expansion, it's something that is related to Yug Parivartana. The reason why it's important, I mentioned this, in 15th century, while science came about, Achyutananda Maharaj, who was in Odisha, he was a Shishya of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's one of the Panchasakhas. He wrote a text called Bhavishya Malika. Now, Bhavishya Malika is, several lakh pages, and the predictions in that are stark. When I talk about predictions, these are not like gazing in the crystal ball, saying some gobbledygook. No, this is not. These are cyclical predictions. They're like saying, well, if I have a car that gives me 20 kilometers to a liter, and my car has 2 liters of petrol, well, it'll go for 40 kilometers. That's it. What if I speed it like really high? Can I go to 50 kilometers? Well, you're assuming that, you'll turn off the engine and, it'll keep rolling. It might go for 10 kilometers. Could be anybody's guess. But technically, if I know the mechanics, the calculations, then it'll go a particular time. If I understand that, then the moment I accept that the moon and the sun are receding, fundamentally, the universe is not mechanistic. If it is not mechanistic, my assumptions fall flat and everything starts going haywire. But what the West did over the past 100 years, 200 years, is that they fixed time even by concepts like daylight savings time. In the rest of the world, we have summer time, winter time. Summer, school will open at 7 a.m., winter school will open at 8 a.m. No, no, no. In the West, they go and change the clock. That exercise cost them $3 billion annually. So now, of course, they're saying it's changing. Yeah.
Okay, just
Right.
the curiosity. When you mentioned that, okay, this daylight saving time has cost them this amount of money.
Right.
For a layman, could you just explain how it's happening?
Right. So daylight savings time typically, and today now they're saying it's all digital clocks, everything is changing by itself. Okay, fine. It doesn't matter. These systems that were set up 100, 150, 200 years ago in the West, across, right? When I say West, it's Australia, North America, South America, Europe, right? That's what they treat the world. When they're talking about global, they're talking about only these places, right? Everything is going by fixed time. So you can literally walk into a metro station and the train will take off at 8 a.m. So they change the clock, not the time of the train. Okay. So changing the clocks exercise is what is about $3 billion annually. And I mentioned the study in book 2. Okay, these are all, none of these things that I mentioned in the book is my conjecturing. I'm literally just connecting the dots. This is the research by the Westerners themselves. Like, for example, the next book, I'll talk about another massive concept which might attract some controversy. But there are fundamentally two toilets: Western toilet and Indian toilet. Today, Western toilets, they're like coming back. They're like, it's really resulting into colon cancer and all kinds of things. So squatty potty is what it's becoming, right? They're literally just trying to crawl back. Well, the Western toilet is not good. Squatty potty is good. Squatty potty is fundamentally Indian. Basmati to Texmati, haldi doodh to turmeric latte, everything is the same. It's just been taken up, appropriated. Again, I am not trying to say you're wrong, you shouldn't be doing this. My point is, you've taken it, you were misled, it's out of ignorance, it's time to course correct. Because fundamentally, the Vedic people, Hindus, Sanatanis, all of us have been extremely welcoming because this is the land of knowledge. This is where it all comes from. I've heard so many, these Indians, they think this, they think that. Well, I had these doubts too, but then finally I realized the only answers that are available are only over here. They're not anywhere else. And that's why it makes a lot of sense to start reevaluating. When we go to the West, the costs are really high compared to in the East. That's because of a synthetic establishment of the society. This is again book 2. There's a massive debate we can have on this. We can have a really big discussion on it. But for now, this is it. Sorry, I just realized it's about 38 minutes already.
No, it's fine. It's fine. We have time. So I'll come back to Dr. Bijit Prasanta,
Yeah.
who is a classically trained, Western trained quantum physicist as his education. So let's take his take, and he also knows about the Vedas and our scriptures. So, like when this book talks about the philosophy may be the right word. Okay, the Kāla Darśana, or in studied into philosophy of time, in from a like a general scientific reasoning perspective, if somebody is defining philosophy of time, and we also have a correct a thing called philosophy of science as a kind of a salutation which is given. So how do you define philosophy of time, okay, from a classical quantum physicist perspective?
Right, the philosophy of time, right? I mean, so we all, and first of all, thank you, Ajay ji, for this. Yeah, I'm very privileged to be a part of this podcast. And yeah, I mean, I am representing myself in the sense that I am whatever I'm going to talk about very briefly. It's a amalgamation of the Oriental Indian knowledge, and part of it will be Western knowledge. And I have a lot of questions. I'm trying to answer them. And in this process, I'm trying to sort of create my own philosophy, working on a book. So yeah, so maybe some part of it will be the modern physics, the understanding of time, with respect to uh, the uh, the current knowledge of modern physics. And then, I mean, please allow me to ask a few things, discuss a few things with Ajay ji, because yeah, so I want his book to be discussed in this podcast than our discussion on modern physics. But yeah, so in one of the podcasts, I think yesterday or day before yesterday, we indeed talk about Ajay ji's book and the idea of time from different perspective. One idea was that time as perceived by the ancient cavemen, that pretty much who was a Hindu caveman, because who looked up at the sky and started to ask like how to create meaning out of all these cosmic movements, and that led to calendar, astronomy, geometry, trigonometry, and even spirituality in Hindu dharma. Right? We have discussed extensively about it. Whoever want to know about this can we refer to the previous podcast. And then, as per the Hindu Shastra, even in Manusmriti, right, we discuss time from the aspect of duality. It's like it's the completion of one dual cycle. So, from perspective, time is basically a day is defined as a completion of one divas and ratri, right? The ahoratra. And also, so that is the day, one day in the life of a man, a human being. Then, for the ancestors, right? Our Purva Purush who are not on earth, who have left us already. It is again a dual cycle, which is, Krishna Paksha and Shukla Paksha, which construct one sort of month. Strictly saying, it is a lunar month, that is one day in their life. Then we have Uttarayan and Dakshinayan, which is 1 year, Saura Vatsar, which is one day in the life of Devtas. And then it goes on till one day in the life of Brahma, right, who is sort of the creator of the universe. And so this is the time from the perspective of duality, classical duality. And then time as a connection between the cosmic and the daily earthly event, like, based on that, so we looked up, we saw the cosmic movement, and we created our own muhurtas, our own festivities. So, and Manusmriti, again, this very contentious book, what it has done is a great thing. It has unified the cosmic movement with our regular earthly sort of behavior, or it has prescribed some behavior as per the cosmic movements. And then finally, yeah, time in the classical and modern physics, where yeah, so starting from Newton asked some questions. We don't know whether Newton genuinely asked those, but we get these from the writings of Einstein, who actually thought very logically about time. And he came to the idea that, okay, time is not universal, it is relative. And nowadays, Roger Penrose is discussing the idea of cyclic time, in the sense that, I mean, it started from the idea of inflation, uh, which says that right after the Big Bang, the universe went through some rapid expansion, which is called the inflation. And from it was developed by people like Alan Guth and Andre Linde. And Andre Linde was a Russian physicist who then decided to go for this eternal inflation. Is basically कि मतलब अभी inflation से ये universe create हुआ, it is sort of a bubble, and then it might have created other bubbles. And even from this universe, from little patch of space time, you can again have inflation to create another universe from it. And this way, the whole process of creation and inflation can go on. So that led to the idea. It was refined by Roger Penrose to give the idea of cyclical time. Now, whatever I just stated are some facts, but give me just 2 minutes. I won't take much time to sort of just tell you briefly matlab, how Westerners think about the idea of time, right? So in the time of Galileo and Newton, and again, these are the basically writings of Einstein, who thought ki Newton might have uh, understood it this way, but some part of it we find from the Principia, written by this guy Newton. So where we think of time as a universal ticking, right? It is a universal constant ticking, which means ki no matter whether you are on Earth, whether you are on Jupiter or you are near a neutron star or black hole, the ticking of time is the same. Which means ki if we three together sit in one single place, we synchronize our clock, and then one of us stay in Earth, another go to the Andromeda galaxy, and next one go to the nearby, I don't know, Sagittarius A star, which is again any black hole, let's say. So initially we synced our clock, and Newton would say ki because the ticking is universal and time is also the pace of ticking is constant. So our clock will remain synchronized at all time. At all time means in the future, at all moments in the future. Now, this fundamental thing was challenged by Einstein, who said ki no, time is relative because the speed of light is constant, and if speed of light is constant, then speed is what? The distance covered over the time elapsed. So in all our frames, in the, let's say, we three of us have our own individual inertial frames, which means the frames which are moving with some constant velocity. Uh, the light in all our frame is constant. It is around 3 lakh kilometer per second, which means ki the distance measured by us that we are covering over the time elapsed in our own watch, they will be different. Okay, so the space and time, it is relative idea. So if some of us is moving, they will see ki the distance covered is effectively contracted. They will see a very contracted it's called Lorentz contraction in their words. And yeah, so this is basically relativity. And then yeah, so then this was there is one more point which we discussed, which was the arrow of time, which says ki you define something called entropy. Entropy is what? It is basically the measurement of all the possible microstates of a system. In sloppy words, it is the measurement of randomness, which means ki if you break a glass, you see a lot of it shatters into a lot of small pieces, and that if you then if you drop a glass, it breaks, and if you run the movie backward, you can say which is actually the real movie and which is the movie being run backward. So then they say ki the arrow of time is always forward because time moves in the direction in which entropy increases. Entropy of the universe increases, if we so which means ki if you do the time reversal, the universe was having a very small entropy. And so this is the second law of thermodynamics, which talks about entropy. Other than that, all the physical laws are symmetric with respect to time reversal. And again, here we define time as some sort of ticking. And all we are saying here, even in relativity, is that the ticking, the pace of this ticking is different in different reference frames. But I agree with Ajay ji because um, uh, I mean it there are physical processes as well within our body, and when we see our ancient Hindu texts, for example, right, it talks about things like this prana. So where we have six prana, which is equal to one nadi, then we have six which vinadi, I think one vinadi is 60 prana, one nadi is 60 vinadi, one ahoratra is 60 nadi, which means ki one ahoratra is 21,600 prana. And what is that? So basically, it is, I think I can refer to this thing. So this is right. So this is basically defined in terms of how you pronounce the word guru. So basically, if a calm person say the word guru, so this means that one prana is 4 seconds around, and it is approximately the time that a calm person doing pranayam takes to utter the word guru 10 times. Okay. So if you say guru, 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 you say it 10 times. And then if you say it in a calm way, it is around 4 seconds. It was defined that way. Yeah, so these are the few things, and I can go on, but I would like to stop here. And
Yes. Yeah.
I have
Actually,
a
yes.
question. I
You
just
know,
to uh,
we will have. So,
ठीक है.
one one announcement for the audience. So, we are going to actually we're going to have around say a number of podcasts on both the books which are discussed, because they are deep topics which needs to be discussed in detail. And what we're going to do is from next podcast onwards, we're going to choose one subscriber, and we are going to give this book to the subscribers from our platform, Navavimarsh, as a thank you for them to actually joining us. Okay, so that is what we're going to do. So we're going to have procured a few books, and we are going to give it to them. So they will send us an email, and we will send them the books like we have done. We have done actually many book giveaways for many authors, and we do as a just to make sure that people are reading the books, and books as a reading habit, something which needs to be inculcated. So, like, I don't get time right now, but generally, I will be reading books on YouTube to make sure that people at least are listening to the books. That is something important. Just one specific thing I'll just point out, and then we'll open the floor for you to ask questions and also audience to ask questions. When we say correct illusion of time, okay, so and there are maybe 10,000 videos on YouTube itself where which says time is not real, or time is real, or time was born at the big bang. Okay. So people are talking a lot about time and time. Okay, and there are a lot of theories are there. There are called, there's one called time crystals in quantum physics. People would know the term called time crystals are there. So a lot of things are there, but time, philosophy of time, something which actually we as Indic civilization inherently have talked about for millennia and millennia, and that understanding of time, okay, in terms of its precise measurements, which we reflect in our number naming systems. Okay. That is something which is very important for people as to actually ask questions. So I will give the floor back to Ajay sir, and just sir, uh, the way the education system works in our society at the primary level, do you think that something is primarily one of the factors where students don't ask questions as many as they should have? So over to you, sir.
And this is first of all, Dr. Vijit, what you said, spot on, exactly right. We cannot question the means that are being used to analyze time today. And I'm completely pro science. I'm saying, guys, we need to, of course, research. The one thing that I'm saying is question your foundation assumptions. The fundamental assumptions you made in the beginning are wrong. So I'll go back in a very different example. If I have to ask or know what was I like when I was 3 days old, did I have like this facial hair when I was 3 days old? Imagine I'm just like wondering, I'm alone on the earth and I've discarded everything, all these people, Dr. Vijay, he's not even human, this guy's not human. I'm the only human. Did I have this facial hair when I was 3 days old? Who do you think I should ask? My mother, right? Or the nurse that might have been around, or my father, right? Not my younger brother, not my younger sister, not like, look, I'm the whole soul. And I think that is where our fundamental assumptions are falling flat. We need to go back to where did this come from? Where did the second come from? Where did these, right? So most of the people, and I've been fascinated with time travel theories, time is illusion. Okay, fantastic, guys. Understand where are you starting your question from. Your query needs to be at the very foundational basic. If I'm saying time is illusion, what are you basing it on? You're saying, well, the one person is in Andromeda galaxy, one person is in like separate galaxy, I am here. I mean, where is all this coming from? Right? How did you start this journey? You got to start it somewhere, right? You have clocks ticking, it's completely independent of gravitation, completely independent of everything, So movies like Interstellar, they sound very scientific, but they're not, because this is complete fiction, right? Let me get back to stories in the Puranas, which are actually somewhat like this. And I'll give these specific names, but there is this king who has a daughter who wants his daughter to be married to the most powerful person in the universe. So the daughter then has to be married to whom? Like they say, okay, who's the strongest? The wind is the strongest. The wind can't be the strongest because it's taught by the mountains. Mountains not the strongest because it's taught by the earthquakes. Earthquakes not the strongest. So finally they arrive at Sheshanaga, which is, balancing the earth or the Brahmanda. Okay. And so, he meditates and meditates and finally he gets to Brahmaloka. Brahma says, look, by the time you've come here, the era on earth has completely changed. So now when you go back, the persons will be different now. Okay. See how deep they're trying to tell you. Yeah, they're trying to tell you the same thing, but in a very, very different way. Okay. Can you do me a favor? Can you open up book 2, Time? And there is this fold out.
I have. I
Just open that thing. Okay. So you got to understand here, most of the times there is visual. Yeah.
I just need to make sure. Yeah. Now people will be able to see it very clearly.
Yeah. Perfect. I think you need to move it slightly to your left. Yeah, perfect. So if you understand now, look at it from the very beginning, right? This is what, there is no pictorial depiction like this, which is what people are looking for. This diagram took about a year with 9 designers to get it to this level. So understand what it's talking about. Every Purana will say the starting happens at the Anu, Paramanu, Anu, and then it starts to get larger and larger. So the top tip is essentially where Swayambhu Manu comes up. Okay. Every Kalpa, or Brahma's day or Brahma's night, is consists of 14 Manvantaras. Every Manvantar has a Manu. So the Manusmriti is written for every Manvantar. Okay. When you point this out, start from the very top tip, that's Swayambhu Manu. Second one is Swarochish Manu. And then third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. We are at the lowest tip, right? If you understand, we are the lowest tip, which gets broader and broader and broader. Now, every single Purana will talk about Kal is Sarpil in Gati, like it's snake-like movement. This is what the snake-like movement is. Okay. It's not talking about moving of time. It is literally talking about what time feels like. On one hand, you could say, well, it can pass, you wouldn't even know it. Yes, true. But then the time gets bigger. Like the experiencing of time will still be the same for me as it would be for somebody who's, let's say, got 24 hours, but the equivalent of my 20 hours. Okay. So if you understand this diagram, then you will get to a basic foundational principle that they actually are talking about the same things. So Swayambhu Manu lived for millions of years. Swarochish Manu, million years of years. He went to Vanvas for 600 years. Swarochish Manu. Sri Ram, who is in the 23rd Kali Yuga, Treta Yuga, of Vaivasvat Manvantara. So the same Manvantara that we are in the 28th Kali Yuga. Sri Ram, the Ramayana that we read of Valmiki Ramayana is from 23rd Treta Yuga. He lived and ruled for 11,000 years, but he went to Vanvas for 14 years. If anybody calls it an exaggeration, well, why wouldn't we exaggerate Sri Krishna, who's a Purna Avatar? But we say it's only 126 years, right? So the moment you understand this, you basically understand that the entire Panchanga is a bunch of ratios. There are no fixed constants in Panchanga. The moment you understand that, then you get to a basic. Okay, by the way, before the evolution of this, this is what they try to explain as a Big Bang. It's not a Big Bang, it's a gradual expansion of people coming together. Okay. So, and then you've heard theories like, Sri Ram was 30 feet tall, Sri Krishna was 15 feet tall. There was no feet then. So how do you determine? Right? So you keep digging. The foundational measurement of a weight that people take is called Gunja Beej. Gunja seed is the only seed that is uniform across. All the seeds will be the same exact weight. And there are 3 kinds of seeds. There's red and black, there's white, and there's brown. The red and black is the one that we consider. They're exact. That's called Ratti. Okay. Now, Rati will be absolute measurement. If you know, the concept of Dharam Kanta exists in India. Okay. There is no Mazhab Kanta, there is no religion Kanta, there is only Dharam Kanta. I clicked a picture recently and it's called Khan Dharam Kanta. Khan should have had, he's not. Why? Because there is no fundamental definition of weight anywhere else. It's only here. So that Rati is where it starts. Okay. He measures it. He says, okay, this is what Shri Krishna also wore. Gunjamal is something that Shri Krishna wears. There's description of this in various Puranas. So you need to do that in-depth study of going back. Okay, that is what he's talking about. The yojanas he's talking about is different over here, is different over here. Right? That relativity that Einstein talks about from out of the blue has to be correlated to things. And that is what needs to be done when we are studying these texts. So coming back to what was said before, when we start to debate on these theories, all these theories are fine, they sound fascinating, they sound very cool, great. It's not real. The reality is what I'm experiencing today. The reality is what I'm experiencing right now. So the prana is related to that. Prana is what we need to correlate back to. Unless we understand that the prana and kala is the same thing. In the beginning, I can say that I found this phone somewhere on the way. I don't know what this is, so I start assuming that it's a car. Nobody can stop me assuming it's a car. I can sit on it, I can start driving it. It might even actually slip for some time, make me feel like move for 2-3 inches. And then I start blaming the car company for it. Wrong way to go. Because I didn't even discover what it was. That's where the current science is. And I think we need to reimagine that. Until you reimagine that, you realize that the Big Bang theory is wrong. There is no Big Bang. There is essentially how it starts, right? There's Shunya. Shunya space is not the same. That is why, people are constantly talking about consciousness and they say, well, that's not factual. No. That fact comes out from consciousness. First there's consciousness, then there's Surya, then there is matter, and then we have the experiencing of time, from where we start to experience life. So the theory that entropy will keep increasing is flawed, because the foundational theory is that initially there is only Kala and there's 3 gunas. So Rajoguna, Tamoguna, and Sattva-guna. Okay. Now understand what they're talking about. Okay. This is technical. They're talking, Rajoguna is essentially the revolution, the rotation. It's giving you the photosynthesis, day and night, right? Procreation happens during these 2 times. Revolution is Sattva-guna. That's Sri Vishnu. Revolution is giving you seasons. It's giving you, mangoes in summertime, apples in winter time. It's giving rains. It's giving you summer, winter, right? Different temperatures, right? The slight expansion, contraction is what is Rudra. It's Tamoguna. The more food you eat without exercising, the bigger you get. So it's alasya. There's a lot of lethargy. So you keep resting, you keep consuming. That increases the tamoguna. That's why the expansion. That's why the heat. If you control the tamoguna, how do you do that? By exercising. Instead of putting your clothes in washing machine, you start to wash them yourselves. Instead of going and jogging in a gym, start doing your own chores, and you suddenly realize lesser of machinery will have lesser of tamoguna. So it is not invariable, like it's just not going to keep going. We can control it by our own actions. So if there's excessive heat, instead of turning on the air conditioning higher, we should be planting more trees. But what are we doing today? We're cutting more trees. We're building more flats, right? So it is not a invariable, like it's not a straight line that is just going down on. We can actually control it. That's where the foundational difference arises, right? So when we understand that, and again, I keep repeating, I'm completely pro-science, but the thing is, science today does not understand this and is not ready to accept that the foundation assumptions are wrong. The moment we understand that, is when we'll start to change our behavior, right? There's so many fields, and I've studied in the West. Philip Kotler marketing is that we've studied with, right? Philip Kotler marketing talks about the 4 C's, 4 P's. It takes for granted that the production of crops is happening by itself, right? That's the whole course that I now teach. Kulhar economy is essentially moving away from marketing driven consumer markets to production driven economies. If you consume what you're producing, there will be no sustainability crisis. The problem is you're consuming what you have no idea is being produced, and that's why it's resulting. I'll give you a prime example. Haldi doodh, we have like grown up knowing that it's all there, it's all good, analgesic, cures you. Today, the highest selling drinks are turmeric lattes in the US. The biggest producer of turmeric in the world? It's India. India produces 80% of turmeric. US produces zero turmeric, but the highest selling drinks over there. Here's the funny thing. Now, of those 80%, about 20% have already stopped producing turmeric because they are not getting the right prices for turmeric in India. Why? Because they go to the mandi is exploiting them. So they're saying, look, we'll just sell our lands. In places like Uttarakhand, half those places where they were growing basmati and turmeric and all these things, now they have flats and plots for sale. Where do you think the sustainability crisis is coming from? Right here in front of us. We're just not acknowledging it. And what is it a result of? Our lack of understanding of time. That is why it's so important. As you can tell, this is such a huge ocean. It took me so long to bring it out, and I'm so thankful for people like you guys who are even ready to explore this. Because right now, the current narrative is, if you can't explain in 10 minutes, you don't understand yourself. Well, that's where you're mistaken. Your entire understanding is based on foundational principles that are completely wrong, right? That is why we need to question it. So I'm not questioning thermodynamics, not questioning Einstein. I'm saying, guys, question the foundational assumptions. The moment you question that, everything will change. So time is not an illusion. I'll tell you why. In Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna says, I am Kāla. Main hi Kāl hu, right? The way Oppenheimer interprets this, he says, Shri Vishnu says, I am become death. In the movie Oppenheimer, I have never seen a more audacious display of ignorance where they publicize it. Yeah, this is what he's saying. That is not what he's saying. Shri Krishna is saying, I am Kāla. Main hi samay hu. I am time. Okay? And look at how beautifully these scriptures of ours have shown this. There is a Bal Prasanga of Shri Krishna when he's playing, and Yashoda says, I'm going to tie you. So she brings a rope. She tries to tie him, the little kid Krishna, and it falls short. And she says, what have I done? I'm trying to tie this kid. How could the rope be short? I've measured it. She brings another rope longer than this one, still tries to tie him, still falls short. And now she's wondering, Shri Krishna, what have I done? Why are you not, keen to get tied? And he says, no, I don't like to be tied. Okay. And then, she says, okay, please, then she treats him with love. And he says, okay, now you can tie him. And so she's able to tie him with the same rope, right? What they're subliminally telling you is that time cannot be controlled. You cannot control time. Time will basically, the only way to go in tune with it is to completely flow with time. Right? Take another story. You've heard of Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu says, don't worship Vishnu, worship me. What are we doing today? We're saying, look, boss, I don't care about your apples in winter. I need apples in summer. I don't care about mangoes in summer. We need mangoes in winter. I don't care about your, hot outside, cold outside, raining outside. I need climate control. We are fundamentally going against Vishnu here also, no? So this is Brahma, this is Vishnu, this is Rudra. That's it. And Shakti is what is making everything go. The way we connect with these is mantra. We are connecting with these different parts of nature with mantra. right? I can challenge anybody, make a sentence with no explicit or implicit usage of time. You'd say, come here is one sentence. No, come here now is implicit. I'll say, come here now is explicit. So, which is the sentence which has no explicit or implicit usage of time? It's a mantra. Because the devatas are forms of Kala. We are worshipping forms of time. That's it. So, Sri Ram, Chaitra Mas, Shukla Paksh, Navmi, Madhya Dina. Shri Krishna, Bhadrapadra, Krishna Paksh, Ashtami, Madhya Ratri. Surya Avatar, Chandra Avatar. We're fundamentally just worshipping time. As are the Christians and the Muslims as well, right? 25th December. I mean, nobody today has seen Jesus Christ. So if you're talking about fact, you don't know what it is, right? But for us, we are trackers of time. We are the ones who keep time. And how do we know it? Because of our sankalpa. Across all the Hindu paddhatis, across north to south, east to west, everywhere. You do the sankalpa in the beginning of any ashtana. You're like, Shri Shvet Varaha Kalpe, Vaivasvat Manvantare, 28वां Kaliyuge, Parham Charane, 15th Vaishakha Masa, Amavasya Titho, Ravivare, right? That's what and then I talk about Jambu Dvipe, Bharat Varshe, Bharat Khande, Himachal Pradesh Kshetre, Mandi Kshetre, IIT Kshetre, right? I am fundamentally talking about space time. In science, I'm not doing space time. In science, I'm saying, okay, there's a ball that's falling. Okay, when is it falling? Which year is it? Where are we? Which manvantara are we? Nobody knows. That's the thing which, So anyway, as you can tell, I'm phenomenally excited. I'm more excited because you guys are, able to get it and appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. I will now open up the stream for questions. So, Bijidda, whatever question you want to ask, please go ahead and ask.
Yeah, sure. So, like, I was wondering, like, yeah, I'm yet to get the books. I ordered it after that podcast. So, and so I was wondering, like, have you mentioned anything about the calendar, Hindu calendar, and the festivities and all those things?
Yes. So totally. I mean, the reason I've come out with only these two books is because I had to give the fundamental basics. Okay. So, India has had a long history of calendars. We got like thousands of calendars. Vikram Samvat is just one calendar that we're following. There's Saptarishi Samvat, there's Shrishti Samvat, there is Arya Samaj Samvat, there's all kinds of Samvats, right? But in the West, it is only the Gregorian calendar and the following of it. So Julian calendar, Gregorian calendar, different ones. In Islam, it's only Hijri calendar. What started to intrigue me is that Saudi Arabia dropped the Hijri calendar in 2016. That's why Saudi Arabia's stance is becoming very liberal now. They're saying, no, guys, all this is wrong. It's only in India and Pakistan and all these guys are going, no, we need to follow. What are you following? If I would ask you, Bijita, you celebrate Diwali, when do you celebrate it? You're like, it's there. Like, where is it? The calendar tells you. Which calendar is telling you? The Gregorian calendar is not telling you. The Panchanga is telling you. So somebody is maintaining the Panchanga who's keeping this track for you. And that Panchanga guy is not looking at the telescope. Understand, please. Where are the Panchanga guys sitting? Most of the guys, people don't even know where the Panchanga is coming from. I went down to that basic, right? So the reason I've explained these calendars from the very ground up, which is why the books are detailed, is to explain that this is how the calendar comes about. So the current Samvat that we follow as Hindus and the world economy runs on is Vikram Samvat. We can't say, no, our economy is only lunar. No, boss, your economy has to be what the nature is. It's dependent on both. So Vikram Samvat was launched 2000 years ago, in 2082 years ago. It's 2082 in Vikram Samvat. 57 years after that, Julian calendar came about. That's only solar calendar. 700 years after that comes up Hijri calendar. That's only lunar calendar. Now understand the beauty of it, right? When the devatas are, doing Amrit Pan, and the distribution of Amrita is happening. You got to understand these are symbolic stories. Like I explained, Hiranyakashipu, Ravan used to step on the grahas and go, he used to like disrespect the grahas. Isn't that what Sadhguru is saying today? He's saying all these grahas are like rocks. Can you be out of that grahas? No, I can't be. I'm not even that big to comment on that, right? So you need to go in tune with it. That's why I explained the Russian experiment. Russia actually did away with the weekdays. The French did away with the weekdays. There's a Raja Ripunjay who did away with the weekdays. And finally, their economies collapsed in 20-25 years. So they had to come back to the weekdays. So when the Julian calendar was launched, anybody who says that Vikram Samvat came after it needs to explain how did your weekdays end up being the same as the weekdays that are given by the Panchanga, the Vikram Samvat. Okay. I have a lot of scholars who come back to me. They say, no, but there is no mention of weekdays in the Rig Veda. I said, fine. Let me explain something. A mathematics book talks about differential calculus. And a physics book talks about acceleration. I can't now come back and say, well, the mathematician who wrote this book in mathematics does not understand acceleration. Right? So in a panchanga, you have 5 angas, panch anga. It's clearly saying this. The Bhagwan is of 5 tattvas, Bhumi, Gagan, Vayu, Agni, Neer. When these two interact with each other, they inform your 5 Gyanendriyas and you act through your 5 Karmendriyas. The prana is the one that is the middle. Right? So all of this is informed locally by the Samvat. No Samvat is independent. Like Vikram Samvat didn't come out of thin air. It had to be connected to Krishna Samvat. Krishna Samvat had to be connected to Sri Ram Samvat. It had, right? So the understanding of time that we are following is through our traditions. And where do we get this? Through the Sankalpa. So all of this is explained. All the festivals stay. There's mention of Kumbh Mela in Ramayana as well. So, I mean, what best option do I have? I can ask about me when I was 3 days old. Best person to answer that is my mother. Second best, my father. Third best, the nurse who might have been there. Fourth best, my grandmother. Anybody who might have been around that time. I can't say, well, Barack Obama's mother is really well known. I think she'll have the best answer. So yes, do I explain calendars? Yes, in depth, in detail. In the third book, I'll be going much more in depth on these fundamental concepts that are sort of strayed away from, and taken away from us. So the reality we're experiencing today is actually a pretty brutal, blunt reality, and we need to course correct ourselves. If we don't, the only people that suffer is us. The Pahalgam incident was like a primary indicator for that. That terror attack is a direct outcome of misunderstanding of time. If you started understanding time, you wouldn't even do that. But we can go detailed discussion on that as well.
I have one more question, Bhupendra.
No. You can ask two more questions. Actually, no. You can ask 2 more questions. No issues. What I am going to show something to sir. Sir might like it actually. So sure. If you can see my screen.
Yeah.
So the entrepreneur, he's Mr. Bedekar. Okay, he's from Maharashtra. Yeah. He has developed this calendar on Vedic time, and you can show that is a physical calendar, and it actually ties to the topic of health, Ayurveda, astronomy, and time. Okay, right. As a holistic method, and he has developed the ideas in your book into a kind of a health system to actually improve our health by using this clock that you see on the screen.
Totally.
Okay, totally.
That's exactly what we are also trying to do at IIT.
So I will probably give you the number of this individual. You can talk to him and maybe. So I thought, okay, this is something we very connects to what we are talking about and discussing.
Sure. This sounds fantastic. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Vijitda, please go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
small question. So, like,
yeah.
what are your views on Jyotish? Okay, sloppily saying astrology and Jyotish.
See, Jyotish is a Vedanga. Okay, so I studied Jyotish because I was so intrigued by it. Again, why would somebody do PhD in mathematics?
Just to interrupt you for a while. So, Jyotish not in the sense of the movement of the planets and the stars, but
Right,
in the sense of these cosmic movements
right.
actually controlling things and activities on Earth.
And that's why I wanted to give you the background of it, right? See, the this is all called Maya. Eventually, it says it's nothing, but it's everything. So you're able to view it, but at the same time, you're not able to view it. So how is it being determined versus not? There are two aspects to it. One, Jyotish is a Vedanga. So it's not for me to comment on it that it's not. And I've read these same theories, maybe 10 years ago, I was like, no, these Vedangas are like no longer applicable. This is all old things. And this, it's not. It's as current as, can be today. So if I were to start, see, I'm a computer scientist. So, where did I start my computer science engineering with? Binary code. Then I got to hexadecimal. Then I got to COBOL, BASIC, C, C++. Now people are like programming in Python and whatnot. Can they say that binary language is all mythical? No, it's not. Eventually, today I'm still working on the same 1 and 0 of the current, which is determining the IC. It's is it on, is it off? 1,000 of these will make a separate circuit, then it'll make a gate. That's how it grows. The moment you understand that, then you realize Vedanga Jyotish is the eyes of the Ved Purusha. Okay, it's telling you the quality of time that will be happening at that time, that particular time. Okay, don't mistake, the Sunday horoscope in Times of India. That's like grass. That's not Jyotish. That is not. I mean that whole concept of Greek astrology, Western. Sorry, there is no Greek in Western astrology. It's all same as haldi doodh to turmeric latte, basmati to texpati. That's all it is. There's no truth to it. It's all like adapted from here. People are saying, Newton is a planet, Pluto is a planet. Look, Vedanga Jyotish talks about Patal Loka, it talks about Varana Loka, So it's all there, but we don't consider them as planets. Why? Because their orbital cycles are longer than any average human life. If it's not affecting, Vedas have not changed for millions of years. They're still the same. Science has said, look, Pluto is a planet, Pluto is not a planet. Well, Pluto is this, Pluto is not that. Because, this is a way of learning, but that's only started in 15th century. Okay. So now coming back to where we are. For us, it is important to understand the way, and I've explained Ghatika. I'll quickly go into Ghatika. See, Ghatika is essentially measuring the high tide and low tide. The grahas that are changing the way we feel. So, Var is Agni, Tithi is Jala, Nakshatra is Vayu, Yoga is Akash, Karana is Prithvi. These are the 5 aspects of the Panchanga that we study. In Ghatika, you're measuring essentially the high tide, low tide kind of a movement, which is related to the moon. If it's high tide, the moon is right on top, right? If it's Purnima, the moon is completely full of light. So your emotional state will be different, right? Guru Brihaspati gives certain characteristics. Sun gives certain characteristics. Mangal gives certain characteristics. So when you talk about, let's say, Sri Krishna or Sri Rama's horoscope at the time that he was born, it says he was born a Shukla Paksh, Chaitra Mas, Shukla Paksh, Navmi. When the moon was in its own sign, Jupiter was with it in Punarvasu Nakshatra, and both these bodies were in the Lagna. All the other grahas were exalted. What it's telling you is that the quality of time was this. If a trained Jyotishi looks at this chart, he can tell that this is not an ordinary chart. This is of a person who must have done this, 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 this. So to tell you exactly what it is, if I'm sitting here and I'm just seeing you on a camera. I don't know where exactly you are. If you just told me like some 5, 6 parameters, well, it is bright light behind me, okay, and we're in the same country, and I can hear a lot of sounds, I'll say, well, you're possibly facing east because it is 2:30 in the afternoon or 3:30 in the afternoon. Now, if the bright light is of the sun right behind you, that means the time is afternoon. You're probably in India. You're probably in somewhere here in the northern hemisphere, right? This is how you determine. That is what Jyotisha does. When you get really adept, then you are able to interpret those things qualitatively as well as quantitatively, which is why I find this idea of linear time is totally flawed. The linear time came up only after the 15th century, after invention of the clock. Invention of the clock is what deluded the Westerners. No, that's what basically made them think, oh my God, we become swamis of time, we become lords of time. That is when the whole delusion started. And then once I started to understand this, then everything maps onto it. Go back to it. Who do you think has set up the clock towers across the world? It's the Europeans, not us. Because they wanted you to tune out of the basic solar cycles and go back to the clock. Today, I can assure you, if you do Surya Tarpana in the morning at sunrise, it'll affect your life. It will. Don't questions asked. You go in a full moon night, you do, moon gazing, you have Chandra Namaskar, you have Surya Namaskar. You have Surya Namaskar, which has 12 poses, mapping onto the Dwadasha. You have Chandra Namaskar, which has 15 poses, which map onto the Tithis. Right? So these things are affecting you, but you got to understand it. Right? You got to experience it. Because if I say that, well, I can't really say I smoke 15 cigarettes right now, I'm not getting cancer. You'll not get it today. You'll get, 20 years from now. If I start having apples today, it'll start affecting my health. And gradually I'll start seeing like maybe a year from now that, I'm really getting better in health. So it's the same thing. Do grahas affect our lives? Yes. Because that's what it is. I mean, the more sun I see every day, the more vitamin D I get. The more moonlight I'm able to get, the more emotional balance that I'm able to get, right? I mean, everything is same. Otherwise, we could be living in dungeons and be happy. I don't think that's the case. The more in tune with nature you get, the more you realize everything is working in unison. The more aware you are of that, the better your lifestyle gets. I'm literally living in heaven, not because I'm driving a Ferrari or I'm like, 50 servants. I'm genuinely in heaven because I'm in tune with nature. That is what Vedanga Jyotish helps you understand. Vedanga Jyotish is a Vedanga. I mean, of the 6 angas, this is one, and it's the eyes. So it's a very prominent one. It'll be able to explain concepts which we don't understand otherwise. And that's why I say the question we need to ask is always, what happened in the 15th century? You started believing that because you have the clock, you are now controllers of time, and you're not. And that clock today is going out of sync, but you are deluding yourself to believing that, daylight savings time is going to all control it. It's not. What are the visible proofs in front of you? The Western economy, especially US today, is under $37, $38 trillion of debt. And they're calling it global debt. If there's no global debt, how can there be a global profit? Because it's their way of saying, look, guys, we don't really know where to replenish it from. We've basically ruined it. If you keep extracting, I mean, oceans have run out of fish, rivers have run dry. I mean, that's what is happening. So when you're experiencing something, you need to replenish it. Experiencing heat, plant more trees, not turn on the AC. And that all is related to Vedas, Jyotish, understanding of time, and where we are.
Yes, Bijidda.
Yeah, I think I had these 2 questions, so we can open the floor if you want. Thank you. Thanks, Ajay.
Arey, welcome. I'm so thrilled that, you guys are engaged, because otherwise people are like, oh, it doesn't matter. How does it matter? I've had discussion like this. I said, if it doesn't matter, why are you facing a problem? Your entire sustainability problem is this. I
Okay.
can't. Yeah.
Yeah, please, okay. So we have one user saying how can get the book. So the book description, in the description, you have the book link for the book 1, book 2 from Garuda. Also in the podcast description, you will get the book's details. You can buy it. Even in the chat, I have put it on the pinned, so you can just click and get the book there itself. Okay. Yeah, and this one question which is out of topic, but if you want to take it, because you are teaching in IIT, that the social sciences are being taught in IIT. So, like, do you think it is right, wrong, and what is your opinion on that?
See, actually, I think the time is ripe to start questioning the very foundations of the educational system that we have today, in any case. The fact that we've started to give these streams to students, and science students study this, social sciences study this, English students study this, I think it's fundamentally wrong. The Gurukulas essentially didn't start with these streams. A guru at the very first day will teach you pranayama. If you get to know your breath, you get to know your own nature, you start to interface with the world better. It doesn't start with, okay, here's the letter of the alphabet, A is for apple, B is for ball. Doesn't start there. It starts with yourself, right? Having said that, IIT's teaching social sciences, is this wrong? Is this right? I think we need to kind of bridge the gaps between people. We've treated this long enough that, this is perfect. This is only technology. A technologist shouldn't answer this question, shouldn't ask these questions. That's wrong. I think people genuinely are curious. We need to answer these questions for everyone, because invariably the kind of problems we are facing today in technology cannot be answered unless we understand where the roots are. Today, everybody, this ChatGPT founder made this statement a few days ago: the more thank yous and please that you write, the more energy we end up wasting. Because energy crisis is going to be the biggest crisis that they're going to face, right? Let's say we are experiencing a 1 second expansion in a day, okay? Just one, like 1 second, hardly anything. No, it's 1 second times 7 billion people. It's 7 billion seconds they're experiencing. That much of extraction is being done every day. That is the consumption is being done every day. That is the kind of deficit that we're facing every day. To understand why it's happening, we need to understand the social sciences, how the whole structure is taken place. We need to understand where the extraction is coming from. We need to understand where the economics is working from. I mean, all the systems that we have today, including IIT, which is based on the Western model, is based on a fundamental assumption that there is absolutely no dearth of things that you can extract. It's a limited resource. And then we're complaining that sustainability problem. Sustainability problem is not coming out of Mars. It's coming out right from here. If you keep cutting trees, temperature will go up. The solution is not AC. The solution is this. And for that, we need to have social sciences. We need to have soft sciences to be made aware. And likewise for the people in the soft sciences area. I think it's equally applicable even to the Vedic people. They need to explain to them that this is where the West is tending, and we need to get everyone together. It's one world, right? We're all here together. So it's not like us versus them, but we need to understand the roots. So that's why.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I don't think we have any other question. Okay, but it was really enthralling, engaging, hearing both of you. Okay, so I feel privileged that I can talk to you, or I can listen to you without doing anything else. So this is something, a pleasure, a privilege which I have. Okay, I want people else to also to actually have this thing and listen to the conversations that Vijitda and you have spoken about. And what we'll do is from the next episode, we're going to now unpack the topics that you have covered in book 1 and book 2. Okay.
Sure.
And from next week onwards, actually, we are going to start the program of giving one book per episode to a subscriber who would be asking questions or comments. Okay. So it's our way of giving back to the people who really want to read the book and promote the book in general, because this is something which needs to be done. Okay, people are not doing it. It doesn't mean it will not be done. Okay, somebody has to take that step.
Yeah.
So thank you, Vijitda, and thank you, Ajay sir, for coming to our podcast.
Thanks to both of you.
So much.
Thanks a lot.
Lovely, Dr. Vijit. Yeah, fantastic being with
I will share the number of Ajay sir to Vijitda, and then you can contact.
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Lovely.
And sir, one more thing. If somebody from the audience wants to contact you, any email address you can give where they can reach out to you.
I'm on Twitter, so happy to. I'm not very active on social media, but that's the best one because Twitter, you can email and then I'll be able to respond to that.
Okay, okay. So I will put the.
You got in touch with me from Twitter itself.
Yeah. Exactly.
Best way, I think social media is the one because emails, there's so much of junk coming in. I don't want to miss something which is, critical. Twitter is good, highlighted. Happy to respond to those as well.
Yeah. So people who want to reach out to Ajay sir.
A healthy debate is always something that I look for. Not, this throwing like random muck around. Where did you get this? All not that's not necessary, right? Because I'm for global population. I think it's important for us to educate the people and know for a fact that the Vedas are the only source where this truth is there.
Yes. So people who want to reach out to Ajay sir, you can just search for. I put his ID as well in our description, so you can reach out to him. And I'll finish it with the famous sentence in Mahabharata, "मैं समय हूँ."
Yeah, exactly. That's it. That's what it is. Kal, Mahakal, it's the same. Kali, Kal, Mahakal, Shri Krishna, all the same forms of time.
Thank you, sir. Jai Shri Ram, Vande Mataram.
Jai Shri Ram, Vande Mataram.
Thanks. Vande Mataram.